welcome to another deep dive.
Another one.
This time, we're going to be exploring Will Durant's Our Oriental Heritage.
Oh, nice.
Which is, as some of our listeners probably already know,
the
first volume in his epic The Story of Civilization series.
Right.
And we're going to use this to try and unpack some of the conditions that allow civilizations to emerge.
Right.
But not only emerge, to truly flourish. And then perhaps most intriguingly, what causes them to decline. Durant offers some really fascinating insights in this work.
Yeah, he does.
From linking the conquering of fear to the birth of creativity.
Oh, yeah.
To the idea that civilizations actually shape people, not the other way around.
Powerful idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
That we aren't just products of our environment.
Right.
But that the societies we build actually shape our values, our beliefs, even our very identities. It really challenges the notion of inherent racial or cultural superiority.
Absolutely.
That was so prevalent in Durant's time.
But before we dive into all that, let's start with the basics. How does Durant actually define civilization? It feels like one of those words that everyone uses.
It's a term that gets thrown around a lot, you know?
But maybe doesn't have a clear understanding of. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
So what's Durant's take?
Well, Durant defines it as a social order promoting cultural creation.
I love that.
I love the elegance of that definition. It's not just about survival. It's about striving for something more.
Okay.
You know?
So it's not just about building cities and farming. It's about
more than that.
Art, philosophy, literature. Those things that elevate us. Beyond just the day-to-day struggle for existence.
Exactly.
Right.
He argues that true civilization involves this constant push towards creating something meaningful, something lasting. And to achieve that...
okay. So to achieve that, there's a certain set of things.
He outlines 4 key elements that need to be in place.
Okay. So what are these key elements?
Well, he starts with a solid economic foundation.
Okay.
You need resources and a system for distributing them.
Makes sense.
Right. Then there's the need for a functional political structure. Without some form of organization and leadership, you just have chaos.
Those two feel pretty fundamental. What about the others? What else is on Durant's list?
So the third element is a bit more intangible, but equally crucial. A strong moral compass. This could come from religion, philosophy, shared traditions. It really varies across cultures. But the point is, you need some shared set of values that guide behavior.
I see,
and provide a sense of cohesion.
So it's not just about the hardware of civilization. The physical infrastructure and systems. But also the software.
Precisely.
A shared values and beliefs that bind a society together.
Exactly. And that leads us to the fourth element. A thirst for knowledge and the arts.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
This is where...
I knew you were going to say that.
This is where things got really interesting. Because Durant argues that this pursuit of knowledge isn't just a byproduct of civilization. It's actually a driving force behind its progress.
Okay. So we've got Durant's definition of civilization and the 4 elements that he sees as essential. But what about the things that can prevent a civilization from reaching its full potential? Or even more dramatically, cause it to collapse entirely?
Well, Durant dives deep into that. Exploring a whole range of factors that can make or break civilization.
I'm glad he does that.
And I like that about him.
And he starts with some of the most fundamental ones. Geography and geology. He points out that things like ice ages, earthquakes, even the challenges of different climates can have a huge impact on a civilization's trajectory.
I mean, that's easy to forget, especially in our modern world. How vulnerable we are to the forces of nature. We might have technology, but an earthquake or a volcanic eruption can still disrupt absolutely in an instant.
And Durant doesn't shy away from highlighting just how precarious those foundations can be.
Yeah.
He spends a good deal of time discussing the specific challenges posed by different geographical locations and how they can shape a civilization's destiny.
I'm guessing access to water and fertile land is a big one.
You're exactly right.
It feels like every ancient civilization I can think of sprung up around a major river.
Water is essential.
Yeah.
Not just for drinking and irrigation, but also for transportation and trade.
Right, right.
Durant points to the Nile.
Yeah.
In Egypt.
Yeah.
The Tigris and Euphrates.
Yeah.
In Mesopotamia.
Oh, Mesopotamia.
The Indus River in India.
Yeah.
All these civilizations arose around these vital waterways.
It's not just about the water itself, is it?
Right.
It's about the resources and trade routes that these rivers open up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He talks about how the control of trade routes,
natural harbors, and access to valuable resources like timber or minerals can give a civilization a significant advantage.
Makes sense.
Both economically and militarily.
Right, right.
He points out that the rise and fall of many civilizations can be directly linked to shifts in these strategic pathways.
So geography and resources play a huge role.
Right.
But it's not the whole story, is it?
You're raising an important point.
Because you've got civilizations flourishing in incredibly diverse environments.
Yes. And this is where Durant's argument takes a fascinating turn.
Okay.
He argues that while geography sets the stage, it's the development of cities that truly allows civilizations to blossom.
So just having a stable food supply isn't enough to create a thriving civilization.
In fact, he goes so far as to say that agriculture alone isn't enough.
What's so special about cities?
Durant argues that cities act like crucibles, concentrating wealth, talent, and ideas, which in turn fosters rapid innovation.
So it's not just about having more people.
He even calls them idea factories.
I like that.
Because of how the density of people living and working in close proximity almost forces collaboration and speeds up breakthroughs in ways that wouldn't be possible in a more spread out agrarian society.
So it's not just about growing food.
Exactly.
It's about growing ideas.
And it's not just the exchange of ideas either.
Right.
Cities become hubs of trade.
Yeah, of course.
Attracting goods and resources from a wide area.
Right.
This influx of wealth further fuels economic growth and allows for the development of specialized roles.
Okay.
Which in turn leads to advancements in everything, from science and technology to art and philosophy.
Okay, I'm starting to see why Durant calls cities the crucible of civilization.
Yeah.
It's like this melting pot. It is. Where innovation just explodes.
Right.
But if we're talking about the factors that shape civilizations, we have to address the elephant in the room.
Right.
The issue that was so central to Durant's time.
Yeah.
The idea of racial superiority.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
And one that Durant tackles head on.
Good.
One of the most compelling arguments he makes in our Oriental Heritage is his complete debunking of the myth of racial superiority.
Okay.
It was a radical idea in the early 20th century, a time when racist ideologies were deeply entrenched in much of the world.
So what's the basis of Durant's argument?
He starts by stating very plainly that there are simply no racial prerequisites to civilization. He points to the fact that great civilizations have arisen on every continent amongst people of all backgrounds.
That makes sense.
He argues that it's the civilization itself that shapes the people, not some inherent racial trait.
That's a powerful statement, especially given the historical context.
It is.
But does he offer any specific examples?
He absolutely does.
To support his claim?
Yeah.
It feels like you'd need some pretty compelling evidence.
He does. He points to Japan's rapid modernization in the 20th century, which mirrored England's trajectory in the 19th century as a prime example.
Okay.
Both nations, despite their vast geographical and cultural differences, were able to achieve incredible technological and economic progress within a relatively short period.
I see. Okay.
For Durant, this was clear evidence that civilization building wasn't about race. It was about the conditions and, importantly, the will to create a thriving society.
It's fascinating to think about how those two examples, separated by time and distance, could serve as such powerful evidence against the idea of racial determinism.
It really does.
It really underscores the point that we aren't bound by our ancestry.
Right.
We have the capacity to shape our own destinies.
And it brings us to what Durant refers to as the intangible essentials.
Yeah, the intangibles, I like.
The civilization.
Okay.
Those less obvious, but equally vital psychological factors that hold a society together.
Okay.
You know?
This is where we go beyond the physical realities of geography and resources and start to explore the inner workings of a civilization.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'm ready to dive into the intangible. Give me the juicy details.
All right, well, he starts with the need for political order.
Okay.
He acknowledges that even imperfect systems of governance are essential.
Right.
Because people need to feel a sense of security and stability.
Yeah.
Without it, it's incredibly difficult to plan for the future.
If you're constantly worried about your safety or the stability of your community, it's hard to focus on anything beyond basic survival.
And along with political order, Durant stresses the importance of common language.
Okay.
Yeah. This might seem obvious, but he argues that the shared language is absolutely vital.
It's hard to imagine building anything lasting, anything complex, without being able to clearly communicate your ideas and aspirations to others.
Exactly.
A common language feels like the bedrock of any shared endeavor.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then he dives into the need for a unifying moral code.
Right.
Which, as we touched on earlier, can come from a variety of sources. Religious beliefs, philosophical systems, family traditions, and social structures.
So it's not just about having laws and punishments.
Yeah, right.
It's about having a shared understanding of right and wrong.
Exactly.
Of what's acceptable and what's not.
He argues that a robust moral code allows a society to move beyond just the fear of punishment. And cultivate a deeper sense of social responsibility.
Okay.
And this sense of shared morality, he argues, often finds expression in a shared belief system. Whether religious or secular.
So in Durant's view, religion, or even a shared secular philosophy, plays a vital role in a civilization's development.
He argues that these belief systems, even if they evolve over time, are crucial because they elevate morality from mere calculation. You know, a cost-benefit analysis of actions and consequences. To a deeper sense of devotion and purpose.
It's like he's saying that shared belief systems, whether rooted in religion or some other form of shared conviction, provide a kind of motivational force that drives people to act in ways that benefit the larger group, even when it might not directly benefit them as individuals.
It's about moving beyond self-interest to a more expansive sense of belonging and shared destiny. And, you know, there's one more intangible essential that Durant highlights, one that feels particularly relevant in today's world. Education?
Education.
Yeah.
It feels like everyone agrees that education is important.
Right.
But what specifically does Durant have to say about it?
He sees it as absolutely fundamental. Durant argues that education in some form is essential for transmitting knowledge and cultural values across generations.
I see,
It's the mechanism by which a society ensures its own continuity. Without it, he argues, a civilization risks losing its hard-won wisdom, its accumulated knowledge, and ultimately its very identity.
I love how Durant ties all these seemingly disparate elements together. From geography and resources to political systems and moral codes, and shows how they all contribute to this incredibly complex and interconnected thing we call civilization.
Yeah, beautiful.
But of course, the big question that looms over all of this is, if civilizations are so carefully constructed, why do they so often decline and fall?
That's the question that haunts every civilization, isn't it? And it's one that Durant explores in great detail.
I like that.
Offering some sobering insights into the factors that can lead to a civilization's unraveling.
Okay, I'm ready for the darker side of the story. What does Durant have to say about the fragility of progress?
Okay.
And the potential pitfalls that can bring down even the most powerful and advanced societies?
Well, he starts by acknowledging the obvious natural disasters and disease outbreaks.
Yeah.
These can devastate even the most well-prepared societies.
It's a stark reminder.
Think of the impact of the Black Death on Europe in the 14th century. It wiped out a third of the population and had ripple effects that lasted for generations.
But what about those internal factors Durant mentioned?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that can lead to a civilization's decline from within?
He explores a whole range of internal factors, starting with the depletion of resources. He argues that civilizations can become victims of their own success.
It makes sense.
As they grow and consume more resources, land, fuel, raw materials, they eventually reach a point where those resources become scarce. Leading to conflict, instability, and ultimately decline.
It's like a cautionary tale about sustainability. Reminding us that we can't just keep taking from the planet without consequences.
Exactly.
Are there any specific examples from history
Absolutely.
that Durant uses to illustrate this point?
He talks about the deforestation of ancient Greece and how it led to soil erosion and a decline in agricultural productivity. He also points to the Roman Empire's over-reliance on slave labor, which stifled innovation and ultimately weakened their economy.
Those are great examples. It's fascinating to see how seemingly unrelated factors, deforestation, slavery, can actually be interconnected and contribute to a civilization's decline. But if we're talking about internal factors, we have to talk about the one that Durant calls moral and mental decay. What exactly does he mean by that?
This is where Durant's analysis gets really interesting and perhaps a bit controversial. He argues that civilizations, especially those centered around large urban centers, are particularly susceptible to what he calls a softening of their moral fiber. He talks about the stresses of urban life, the breakdown of traditional family structures, and the allure of materialism as contributing factors.
So it sounds like he's suggesting that as civilizations become more complex and urbanized, they lose some of the values and traditions.
He's not romanticizing rural life or suggesting that cities are inherently bad. But he does point out that the very things that make cities so dynamic and innovative, the density of people, the constant flow of ideas and influences, the pursuit of wealth and status, can also lead to a decline in social cohesion.
And I see.
And a weakening of moral standards.
It's almost like there's a trade-off. A kind of Faustian bargain. You get the benefits of urbanization, the progress, the innovation, the excitement. But you also risk losing some of the grounding, the shared sense of purpose that came with a more traditional way of life.
That's a great way to put it.
And Durant goes on to link this moral decay to a decline in leadership quality.
He argues that as civilizations become more complex, they require increasingly skilled and virtuous leaders to navigate the challenges they face.
Makes sense.
But often he observes the opposite happens.
Right.
Power becomes concentrated in the hands of a few. Yeah. And those in power often prioritize their own interests over the needs of the people.
It's a classic tale, isn't it?
It is.
The rise of corruption, the abuse of power, the slow erosion of trust in those who are supposed to be leading.
Exactly.
It feels like we see this pattern repeating itself.
We do.
Throughout history.
And Durant argues that this decline in leadership quality is often a key factor in a civilization's downfall.
It's a sobering thought.
It is.
And one that feels particularly relevant.
It does resonate.
In today's world.
It does.
Where we see so much division. So much distrust in institutions. And a real crisis of leadership.
Absolutely.
In many parts of the world.
And Durant reminds us that civilization is not a given. It's not something that just happens automatically. It requires constant effort, vigilance, and a willingness.
That's like he's challenging us to not take our own civilization for granted. To recognize that it's something we need to actively participate in. Shaping and preserving.
Precisely.
And One of the things I find most fascinating about Durant's analysis of civilization is his focus on the role of cultural transmission.
Yeah. He argues that civilizations don't just exist in a vacuum.
Right.
They're constantly interacting, influencing and learning from one another.
This is where the idea of intermarriage of stocks that Durant mentions comes into play.
Exactly.
It's not just about literal intermarriage, but about the mixing of ideas, customs, and traditions between different groups.
Durant argues that this cross-pollination of cultures is often a catalyst for innovation and progress. He observes that civilizations tend to become stagnant and decline when they isolate themselves, when they stop engaging with the wider world and become resistant to new ideas and influences.
It's like he's arguing that diversity, both within a civilization and between different civilizations, is essential for vitality and growth.
Precisely.
And he uses some really compelling examples from the civilizations he covers in our Oriental Heritage to illustrate this point.
For instance, he highlights how ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Indus Valley civilization all interacted and exchanged ideas through trade, diplomacy, and even conflict.
So it wasn't just about conquest and competition, but also about cultural exchange and learning from each other.
Exactly.
It makes you realize that even in ancient times,
it does.
The world was far more interconnected than we often imagine.
And Durant points out that this wasn't just a one-way street. He emphasizes how these ancient Eastern civilizations profoundly influenced the development
of Western civilization.
I'm intrigued. What kind of influences are we talking about here? It feels like the standard narrative is all about how the West influenced the East. Not the other way around.
That's a common misconception. And one that Durant challenges directly. He points to things like the alphabet we use today, which has its roots in the Phoenician script, which itself was influenced by Egyptian hieroglyphs. Or consider the concept of monotheism, the belief in one God, which emerged in ancient Egypt centuries before it became a central tenet of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
That really flips the script.
It does.
It makes you realize how much of what we consider to be Western actually has its origins in these ancient Eastern civilizations.
It's an important point.
And one that Durant emphasizes throughout his work. He wants us to see beyond the narrow lens of Western exceptionalism and recognize the vast and interconnected web of influences that have shaped human civilization.
It's almost like he's arguing for a more expansive and inclusive understanding of history, one that acknowledges the contributions of all cultures, not just those that happen to fit into the dominant narrative.
And this focus on interconnectedness is also evident in Durant's exploration of leadership.
That's a great segue because it feels like leadership plays a crucial role in both the rise and fall of civilization.
It's absolutely.
What kind of insights?
Well, he doesn't offer a simple formula or a checklist of traits. He was a philosopher and historian, not a leadership coach.
I love that he approaches it from that perspective.
But he is keenly interested.
It's not just about who's in charge. It's about how they wield that power and the values that guide their decisions.
And he contrasts leaders like Ashoka in India, who used his power to promote peace, social welfare, and religious tolerance, with leaders like the Assyrian kings who ruled through brutality, conquest, and oppression.
It's a classic dichotomy, isn't it?
It is.
The benevolent leader versus the tyrant. And it makes you wonder if there are certain qualities, certain values that are more conducive to creating a lasting and prosperous civilization.
That Durant seems to be grappling with throughout his work. He doesn't offer easy answers, but he does suggest that the most successful leaders, the ones who create the most enduring legacies, are those who understand that true strength lies in serving the well-being of their people.
It's a powerful idea.
It is.
And one that feels particularly relevant today.
That does resonate.
It's so easy to get caught up in the trappings of power.
It is.
To lose sight of the fact that leadership is ultimately about service.
And it's not just about individual leaders either. Right. He argues that the character of a civilization is reflected in the values and aspirations of its people.
So it's not just about having a great leader at the top.
Right.
It's about creating a culture, a set of shared values that encourages and supports ethical leadership at all levels of society.
And that brings us to one of the most challenging and thought-provoking aspects of Durant's work.
I'm ready.
His exploration of the rise and fall of civilizations. It's a theme that runs throughout his entire Story of Civilization series. And it forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about our own place in history.
This is where things get a little existential.
It does make you wonder.
Right, because it makes you wonder if so many great civilizations have risen and fallen before us. What does that say about our own civilization? Are we doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past?
That haunts every generation, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Durant doesn't shy away from it.
Good.
He acknowledges the cyclical nature of history. Most civilizations tend to rise and fall, often succumbing to the same pitfalls. Internal strife, corruption, complacency, a loss of shared purpose.
It's almost like there's a kind of hubris built into the idea of civilization itself. A belief that we've somehow transcended.
And Durant seems to suggest
the forces that brought down those who came before us.
That this very hubris, this belief in our own exceptionalism can blind us to the dangers that lurk within our own societies.
So if we're constantly at risk of repeating the mistakes of the past, is there any hope?
He actually ends on a surprisingly hopeful note.
Okay, that's a relief.
He argues that by understanding the mistakes of the past, by learning from the triumphs and tragedies of those who came before us, we might just be able to break the cycle and create more just, sustainable, and enlightened future.
So it's not about predicting the future.
Right.
It's about learning from the past.
Exactly.
And using that knowledge to make wiser choices.
Exactly. He challenges us to take the lessons of history to heart, to apply them to the challenges we face today, and to strive to create a future that honors the best of what humanity has to offer.
It's a daunting task.
It is.
But also incredibly inspiring.
It is.
And it makes you realize that the story of civilization isn't just something we read about in books.
It's not.
It's something we're all actively writing.
We are.
Every single day.
And you know, one of the things that makes Durant's work so relevant today is his focus on the interconnectedness of civilizations.
That's true.
This theme feels particularly poignant in our increasingly globalized world.
We're not just isolated nations anymore. We're all part of this intricate web of relationships, economies, and cultures.
Precisely.
And Durant saw this.
He did.
Coming back in the early 20th century. He recognized the growing interdependence of nations. And argued that this interconnectedness could be a powerful force for good.
It could. Fostering collaboration, understanding, and progress.
It's a beautiful vision.
It is.
But there are also potential downsides.
You're absolutely right.
To this level of interconnectedness.
He did.
Right?
He did.
We see it all the time.
Yeah.
The spread of conflict, economic instability, even pandemics like the one we just experienced.
And Durant was acutely aware of these potential risks. He cautioned against the dangers of cultural homogenization, the loss of unique traditions and identities in the face of globalization.
So it's a delicate balancing act.
It is.
We need to find ways to harness the benefits of interconnectedness, the collaboration, the sharing of knowledge and resources, while also preserving the richness and diversity of cultures around the world.
That's the challenge we face, isn't it? And it's a challenge that Durant's work helps us to understand and navigate. He doesn't offer easy answers, but he does provide a framework for thinking about these complex issues.
Okay, so we've talked about the rise and fall of civilizations, the interconnectedness of cultures, the importance of leadership, and the lessons we can learn from the past. But what about Durant's overall message in our Oriental Heritage?
Okay.
What's the key takeaway he wants us to walk away with after this deep dive into the ancient world?
At its core, our Oriental Heritage is a call for perspective.
Okay.
Durant wants us to see beyond the narrow lens of Western exceptionalism and recognize the profound contributions of Eastern civilizations to the human story.
Okay.
He's arguing for a more inclusive, nuanced understanding of history.
It's like he's expanding our definition of what it means to be human, showing us that civilization isn't just a Western phenomenon. It's a global tapestry, woven together by the contributions of countless cultures throughout history.
Thereby appreciating the diversity and interconnectedness of human experience, he seems to suggest that we can foster a greater sense of empathy, understanding, and global citizenship. It's a powerful message.
It is.
Especially in a world that often feels increasingly divided.
It's also a reminder
that
history isn't just about the past. It's about the present and the future as well. It's about understanding where we came from so that we can make more informed choices about where we want to go.
And one of the things I appreciate most about Durant's work is that he's not just lecturing us. He's inviting us into a conversation. He's presenting ideas, exploring possibilities, and encouraging us to think critically about the big questions that have always faced humanity.
He does it with such wit and eloquence, too.
He does.
It's like he's sitting right here with us. Sharing his passion for history and his insights into the human condition.
I agree. And that's what makes our Oriental Heritage such a rewarding read. It's an intellectual journey, a philosophical exploration, and a deeply human story, all rolled into one.
It makes you want to keep exploring.
It does.
To keep digging deeper into these ancient civilizations, to uncover all those hidden connections and insights.
Durant certainly inspires that sense of curiosity.
He does.
And he reminds us that history isn't just a static collection of facts and dates. It's an ongoing conversation. A dynamic process of interpretation and reinterpretation.
So we're not just passively absorbing history.
Exactly.
We're actively engaging with it. Bringing our own experiences and biases to the table.
And that's what keeps history alive and relevant. It's not just about what happened in the past. It's about what it means to us today. And how it can inform the choices we make for the future.
If we're thinking about Durant's work as an invitation to continue this conversation about civilization. What are some of the big questions he raises that we might want to ponder as we move forward?
Well, one of the most persistent questions that Durant grapples with is how we balance individual freedom with the needs of society. It's a tension that every civilization has faced. And there's no easy answer.
That tension feels particularly relevant today.
It does.
As we see debates raging around issues like personal liberty, social responsibility, and the role of government.
It's a perennial challenge. And Durant explores how different civilizations have tried to strike that balance, some with more success than others. He seems to suggest that the most enduring societies are those that find ways to empower individuals while also fostering a sense of shared purpose and responsibility.
It's that idea of finding the sweet spot.
Exactly.
Where individual aspirations can flourish within a framework of shared values and goals.
Not about suppressing individuality. It's about finding ways to align it with the common good.
Another big question that Durant raises. One that feels particularly timely. Given the rapid pace of technological change we're experiencing, is the role of technology in shaping civilization.
He was writing at a time when technology was already transforming society. And he seemed both fascinated and a bit wary of its potential impact.
It's a question that feels even more urgent today.
Yeah, absolutely.
As we see the rise of artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and other technologies that have the potential to fundamentally alter what it means to be human.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have so much power at our fingertips.
Right.
But do we have the wisdom to use it wisely?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And Durant doesn't offer any easy answers.
Right.
He challenges us to think critically about technology, to weigh the potential benefits against the potential risks, to consider the long-term consequences of our choices, and to use it in ways that serve the common good.
Rather than just individual gain or the pursuit of power.
It's a reminder that technology is just a tool.
Right.
It's up to us, with individuals and as a society, to decide how we want to use it. What kind of future we want to create with it.
And speaking of the future, perhaps the most profound and unsettling question that Durant leaves us with is this. What's next for civilization itself?
Whoa.
He seems to suggest that we're at a crossroads, facing a choice between continuing down a path of self-destruction or forging a new path towards a more sustainable and enlightened future.
It's a pretty stark choice, isn't it?
It is.
And it makes you wonder, what will be the defining characteristics of this next chapter in human history?
Right.
Will we learn from the mistakes of the past?
Right.
Or are we doomed to repeat them?
Are we headed for a new dark age?
Right.
Or can we create something truly transformative?
Yeah.
A civilization that's more more compassionate.
Yeah.
More in harmony with the planet.
I don't know about you, but I find that both terrifying and exhilarating.
It's true.
We have the power to shape the future.
Right.
But the responsibility that comes with that power is immense.
It's both humbling and empowering, isn't it?
It is.
Durant's work reminds us that history isn't just something we read about in books.
Right.
It's something we're all actively creating.
It is.
For better or for worse.
Yeah.
Every single day.
And that's a powerful note to end on.
It is.
The story of civilization isn't over.
Right.
We're still writing it.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Will Durant's Our Oriental Heritage.
Yeah.
It's been an incredible journey. And I hope it sparked some new ideas and perspectives.
It certainly has for me.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling Durant would be thrilled to know that we're still grappling with these questions, still engaged in this grand conversation about the meaning of civilization and the future of humanity.
Until next time.
Yes.
Keep exploring.
Yeah.
Keep questioning. Yeah. And keep those minds open.